It's a story that made headlines across the U.S. Ferguson, Missouri, August 9. A white police officer shoots and kills an unarmed black teenager. Rioting erupts almost immediately. Even the U.S. Justice Department gets involved, investigating allegations that Ferguson police engaged in a pattern of abuse against the town's black residents. VOA's Chris Simkins has been covering the Ferguson case, and he joins me right now. Thank you so much for joining me, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about what we know and what we do not know about what happened in Ferguson in August.
Well, as you said, on August 9th, Michael Brown and a friend were walking down the middle of the street in an apartment complex in Ferguson. Brown was going to his grandmother's house when he was confronted in a patrol car by Officer Darren Wilson. Police say Officer Wilson told Michael Brown and his friend to get out of the street and walk on the sidewalk. Police say then a confrontation happened between Brown and Officer Wilson, which led to the shooting. Now, there are conflicting reports about what happened after that confrontation. Police said there was a struggle between Brown and the police officer. Brown punched the police officer, and then the shooting occurred. But witnesses say that Mr. Brown was unarmed and ran away from the police officer, put his hands in the air in a sign of surrender when he was shot by Officer Wilson. So conflicting reports, and investigators are still trying to figure out what happened.
Critics have been comparing these cases like what happened with Trayvon Martin. And they're trying to relate this and trying to bring a connection to this. But is this a countrywide problem that's going on in the U.S.?
A lot of African Americans say it is. They have, and we were told by many people in Ferguson and the St. Louis area, that they had been stopped many times by police officers for doing nothing, and would ask the police officers why they were stopped. Police officers said, well, your tire touched a yellow line, or your license plate looked irregular. But after an investigation, these black motorists committed no crime. Some cases they were let go. Sometimes they may have said something back to the police officer that the police officer didn't like, and they were locked up. So there is a pattern here, and I think a lot of African Americans say that white police officers in this community were targeting blacks and suspecting them of crimes when they absolutely committed no crime at all.
What about the police department? What do they have to say, and what's going to happen to the officer in question?
Well, the police department has said that they are continuing their investigation. The police officer has been put on administrative leave, and a grand jury over the next several weeks will be deciding whether or not to bring criminal charges against Officer Wilson in the case.
And by any comparison, would you classify this as racial profiling?
Some people might say that he was racially profiled, but it's undetermined whether that in fact happened. Mr. Brown was involved in a strong-arm robbery at a convenience store prior to him confronting the police officer. We don't know whether the police officer identified him as the suspect in this robbery, so it remains to be seen. But a lot of African Americans say police, not only in Ferguson, but in that whole metropolitan St. Louis vicinity, often engage in racial profiling.
Okay, we keep a close watch on this. Thank you so much for joining us. Chris Simkins, VOA's correspondent.